Happy almost Friday. I hope everybody is doing well and everybody had a good week. Um, we are going to be continuing on with factoring, and last week we finished all the different types of factoring. So this week, what we're going to be doing is kind of practicing all those types while using the zero product property, which is basically solving, which we've already talked about as well. So it's going to kind of be a review week here. Um, these first three problems, feel free to go over them if you want to, but we actually did those last week in the guided practice, so we're just going to skip those. So we're going to, again, look at solving these. So if you look at the steps here, you always want to get all the terms on the same side of the equation, and you want the x squared term to always have a positive coefficient. Okay, so you always want to set your equation equal to 0. Then you want to see if you can take out a GCF, okay, and then you're going to be doing factoring with the remaining polynomial. So this first one is already set equal to 0, and then you're going to take a GCF out of 2, right? So we're going to have 6x squared minus x minus 2 is equal to 0. So even though we took a GCF out, we still have this coefficient in front of x squared, so we know that this is going to be a tricky trinomial. So we're going to try to figure out what multiplies to negative 12 and what adds to negative 1, okay, which is going to be negative 4 times 3. So I'm going to separate this, do 6x squared minus 4x plus 3x minus 2. Okay, and then I'm going to keep factoring here. So I'm going to take out a 2x to get 3x minus 2, take out a plus 1 to get 3x minus 2, which gives me 2x plus 1 from what's left outside, and then 3x minus 2, all equal to 0. And then I also have this GCF here of 2. If you're solving and you take out a GCF that doesn't have a variable with it, you actually don't need to bring it down here. The reason for that is when I start solving this, I'm setting these equal to 0. If I set 2 equal to 0, that's not going to give me an x value, right? So if it doesn't have an x value there, if it's not like 2x equals 0, which would then give me x is 0, you actually don't really even need to worry about it once you take out that GCF. Okay, so I could just, get rid of that and not even bring that down, but not that. Okay, so now I'm just going to set these both equal to 0. So I have 2x plus 1 equals 0. I have 3x minus 2 equals 0. So I'm just going to go ahead and solve here. Okay, so I have x equals negative 1/2. Or x is equal to 2/3. Okay. All right, so for number 2, first step I need to do is set this equal to 0. So I have to bring over my 243 here. So I have 12x squared minus 243 is equal to 0. So looking at this, let's see, there should be a GCF here. So 243 divided by 3 is 81. So let's take a 3 out here. Okay, so that would give us 4x squared minus 81. Okay, now we have dots. So we have 2x minus 9. We have 2x plus 9. And again, when I took this GCF of 3 out, you almost, you don't really need to bring that down anymore because it doesn't have a variable, so we know it's not going to be an answer. So I have 2x minus 9 equals 0, 2x plus 9 equals 0. So I'm just going to go ahead and solve. And I'm going to end up with x is equal to 9/2. And then I know this is going to be the opposite, so x is equal to negative 9/2. Okay, you can get fancy here if you want, and you could do plus or minus 9/2. super fancy. Okay, or you could just write it out separately. All right, so for number 3, again, we want to set this equal to 0 first. So we're going to subtract the 17x from both sides. And we have 5x squared minus 17x plus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, so unfortunately, we cannot take out a GCF, which means we're going to have to figure out what multiplies to 30 and adds to negative 17. Okay, so that's not too bad, right? Negative 15 times negative 2. So 5x squared minus 15x minus 2x plus 6. And we're going to group these and take out a 5x to get x minus 3. We're going to take out a negative 2 to get x minus 3. So I have 5x minus 2 and x minus 3. Okay, so we're just going to set both of these equal to 0 and solve here. Okay, so I should get x equals 2/5 or x is equal to 3. All right, number 4. This looks like a good one. So again, first thing we want to do is set it all equal to 0. Okay, so we're going to subtract the 4x squared from the 9x squared. We're going to subtract the 7x cubed from the 14x cubed and subtract the 2x on both sides. Okay, so this gives us 7x cubed minus 13x squared minus 2x. All right, so for this one, our GCF would be x. So we can't get rid of that because that's going to be able to be solved for once we set it equal to 0. Okay, so don't get rid of that. So now we still have a tricky trinomial because we can't factor anything else out. So it needs to multiply to negative 14 and add to negative 13. Okay, so negative 14 times 1 would work. So again, don't forget about that x there. So I'm going to plug in my negative 14x plus my 1x minus 2. Okay, I'm going to take my GCF. And if you want, like sometimes it's easier just to kind of draw an arrow and put this in at the bottom so it's not getting lost in your work. So I'm going to take a 7x out and get x minus 2. I'm going to take a plus 1 out to get x minus 2. So I have 7x plus 1. I have x minus 2. And then I have my GCF of x here. Okay, so I'm going to set all of these equal to 0. So x is equal to 0. Obviously, I don't have to solve that one. Okay, so we get x equals 2. And we get x is equal to negative 1/7. Okay, and notice here I have 3 answers. And if you look at the problem, the highest exponent is 3. So I think we talked about that last week. If you look at the highest exponent, that's how many answers you should have. Okay. All right, number 5. Again, get it set equal to 0. We cannot take a GCF out. Okay, so we have to do another tricky trinomial. So it has to multiply to negative 30, add to negative 1. So that would be negative 6 times 5. Okay, so we have 3x squared minus 6x plus 5x minus 10. We're going to group these and take out a 3x to get x minus 2 and take out a 5 to get x minus 2. So we have 3x plus 5 and x minus 2. Okay, so we're just setting them each equal to 0. So this is x is equal to a positive 2. And then over here, we're going to get negative 5/3. Okay, so x is equal to negative 5/3 or x is equal to 2. All right, last one. We're going to subtract 5, so those go away. We're going to bring the 42x squared over. Okay, so I'm going to get 42x squared plus 12x is equal to 0. So for this one, I'm going to be able to take a 6 out, 6x, to get 7x plus 2. Okay, and that's all I can do there. I can only take out a GCF. So these are my two factors. So I have 6x is equal to 0. I have 7x plus 2 is equal to 0. So I'm going to get x is equal to 0. And then I'm also going to get x is equal to negative 2/7. All right. So factoring and solving. Pretty awesome. So make sure if there was anything that you guys had questions on, put a star next to it and we can go over it in our live group session tomorrow. All right, I hope everybody has a good rest of your day and I will see you soon. Bye.